And welcome into Dog Central late on a Tuesday night. I am Graham Coffee. You can find me on Twitter at Dog Out West. I am joined as always by my good friend Josh Hansher, aka at Dog underscore Stats. Josh, it is world's largest outdoor cocktail party week. We're here nearing the midnight hour on the East Coast, doing a little preview show. Feels like old times, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. Looking forward to actually going to the game after dogging it on Twitter all day today. But I am excited to be going there. I mean, it is fun.
Man
I
who
mean,
hates
there's no
Jacksonville drives to Jacksonville.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Looking forward to it, and hopefully, if anybody's in at the game and tailgating, I think we're on the southwest side, 1111 Albert Street. Come by and say hello, crack a beer, and say hello if you want, because I'm gonna hopefully get to meet some more people. We met some people last year from the Twitter sphere, and I'd like to meet more of you guys. So here's my public
Nice.
service announcement.
Yeah, if you forget that address, just look on Josh's Twitter profile. It is the location on there. It is also where his ashes will be spread whenever he
I
departs
don't know
our
about
world.
that.
I'm kidding.
So there's a power substation there and some pretty sketchy neighborhoods. So I'm like, I'm good. Maybe.
Yeah, just beautiful
Yeah.
downtown Jacksonville, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could deal with the St. John River maybe, but at any rate. So Graham,
Yeah.
we're this we were talking before the show. It feels different this year. I mean, this
It
game was
does.
always circled. It's always a CBS game. It's the number one rival throughout the record books. All that's true. There's always hype for it. There's always 365 days of getting to talk crap about it to on Twitter or whoever else. And we heard a lot about the losses for Georgia to the NFL, and the players coming back for Florida, and it just kind of feels the same, maybe even not as close a game. And obviously the point spread's over 3 touchdowns. So what are your vibes as a fan and analyst and writer and cover of this team and this game?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because like on the bye week, I got like it was this weird mixture of people in my mentions or comments that we had over on DawgsCentral.com, like how does Georgia stack up against Tennessee, or how does Georgia stack up like against other national contenders like Ohio State or Michigan or whoever, and then like I would answer some of those questions, and then like someone would jump in and be like, don't lose focus on Florida, like Florida's the next opponent, right? And like part of me want to be like, I'm not on the team, but like also, like, but like I get it, right? And like today, I had this weird experience when I was going through the tape for this show and just kind of like thinking back on last year and remembering that game was 3-0. It felt like that game was we were about to go into halftime at Georgia 3, Florida nothing, and
Anything
Georgia's
can happen.
undefeated. Yeah, it felt like everything was like, we were about to have everything on the line in the second half, and the offense wasn't clicking, and then Georgia's defense, did what it does, or I guess did what it did last year, right? Like it took over that game, but I mean, like Georgia was a big favorite last year, and they found themselves in a 3-point game 28 minutes into the first half. So like, there's definitely always that element of anything can happen. Sorry.
And no, I was just going to reiterate that point. I mean, if you take out the 2 minutes of defense and the couple of huge plays that they made, it was kind of one of the worst offensive games efficiently. I mean, it's one of those things that, they actually outgained us by yardage or whatever. And Mullen was trying to hang his hat on, yards per play average. Of course, I mean, it's like it was, Georgia was clearly the better team. They deserved to win. I'm not going to try to tell you what I know what the win probability was, but I'm sure it was highly tilted in Georgia's favor, if not 95% plus. So, but and after that we come back and, Tennessee game happens and then Stetson locks in. And that was, there was still, I mean, I had doubts on the quarterback position. I'm not going to lie, at Florida and later, but it was, everything kind of gelled at that point, and that was, and obviously the rest is history. And maybe that happens again, Graham. I don't think we're really worried about either side of the ball because we were just kind of flying under the radar. I mean, you just, you wrote on the site about the drive data versus some of the the playoff contenders, and Georgia's drives are on average longer than all those teams, with the worst starting field position. If you said that already, forgive me for saying it again, but it's an excellent point. Excellent point. So check that out on DawgsCentral.com. And I did a blog post yesterday as well, sort of ranking us offensive and defensive efficiencies in the SEC. And Georgia is at or near the top on all categories. First in success rate, first in pass success rate, first in rush success rate, and defensively first, second, and and defensive efficiencies allowed. So it's here.
Georgia, like you did a really good job looking at the data within the SEC. And just to add a little bit further context, like UGA, first in the FBS in offensive success rate, second in standard down success rate.
That might be power 5. That might be power 5, by the way. But yes, near the top.
No, I'm sorry. I pulled.
Oh, okay, my bad. All right, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. Second in standard down success rate, second in the FBS in passing down success rate, which, like, what was the whole book on UGA last year, right? It was like, get Georgia into 3rd and long, and Stetson Bennett's absolutely going to struggle to beat you, right?
That's absolutely not the case. And, we were a 41% pass success rate in 2020, and we are 52% now. That is with basically, and, the same quarterback. So that is an incredible improvement, and it's done differently. Last year we had chunk plays and downfield passing that's not been exhibited this year, but they just keep getting the yards. Our yards per play offensively are 7.2. I don't think we ever were at that point last year, even at our best. We into the season at like 6.98 yards per play offensively, and we're just humming along at that, and I don't see it slowing down against a team. Florida's offense is good and puts up some numbers. They make a lot of mistakes, and it's cost them some points. Certainly cost them chances to win games, but the defense is, again, extremely suspect. Bud Davis is he's like Florida. He's like Gator stats. He's a great follow. Very, very smart. Broke it down, deep dive with personnel and everything, and just kind of painted a pretty bleak picture for the Georgia offense versus the Florida defense.
Wait, you mean bleak for Florida's defense, or bleak?
Yeah. Bleak picture for him. He's a Gator.
One interesting thing, just kind of while we're on the statistical conversation, one of our subscribers, Michael Cohen, some of your kind of opponent adjusted net yard per play research kind of got his wheels turning, and he has been working on basically comparing what a team's net yard per play outcomes were versus the average, like, Power 5 opponent that the other, that the opposition has played. But he shared some stuff with me today, like Georgia's on a, against its Power 5 opponents, it's averaging plus 2.43 net yard per play, more than what that opponent is usually allowing in net yard per play. So, like, there's just a level of, like, dominance that's happening, but it's also like this kind of, like, it feels kind of insidious, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like they kind of cruise along and they come out and they pitch a few to the boundary to McIntosh or McConkey or whatever, and, like, all of a sudden you look up and it's it's fourth quarter against Vanderbilt and you've got 580 total yards. Like, this is a really good football team. I think there's a lot of people that are kind of holding out to say, I'll make my judgment on Georgia after the next few weeks, which I think is fair. But I also do feel like, UGA, like, there's been a lot of talk about the Missouri game, I think, and maybe like a little bit of hyper focus on that game, which, even statistically they dominated that game as well. But, like, this is a really good football team, and it's getting better and it's getting pieces back. And there's definitely a chance that, like, they're going to peak at the right time here in the month of November.
Yeah. And you keep saying, the goalposts move all the time, and that's what sports talk and shows like us do. It's just like we constantly reevaluate and say, okay, well, the game you had circled in May. Well, it turns out it's not that big a deal. But we've got this game circled. We've got some plays. We are going to highlight a lot of the UF, the Florida versus LSU game. I think we're going to also have some more. We're going to look at the Tennessee game because that's an interesting game to watch too, I think but we're going to save that for next week because that's a big game too. But right now we're looking at Florida, and I'm going to pull up. We're going to look at the offense first. And
yes, sir.
Clip here. Switch this. All right. Cool.
Bam. Look at that. Yeah, so Anthony Richardson, you know him, you love him, you've heard of him. He's at his best on throws like this, deep off of play action. He's averaging 12.9 yards an attempt and 63.3% completion on play action. On all of his other dropbacks, it's just 5.9 yards per attempt and 51.4% completion. I'm sorry. Do we have clip 2 and 3?
2.
I know you should too, but there was
I think give me a second. Sometimes they get scrambled. They get scrambled if they're not.
The only thing I was going to say is just on this throw, you see him go deep to Justin Shorter, and just keep an eye on him. He's really the only true deep threat on this offense.
Okay, I'm sorry, Graham. It didn't come over.
It's
sorry.
Okay. No, It's just a reverse angle. But the only thing on Shorter is just he's not a burner, but if you miss an assignment, like the safety got caught peeking in the backfield here, and they'll make you pay for it. So right here, this is what makes Richardson so tantalizing to me, right? Like he's pressured 12 yards deep in the backfield, and he's going to turn this into a 2nd and 5. And I like this is you've got to watch the edges and try to tackle him in the backfield and kind of keep those explosive scrambles from happening. So something to watch for Florida. The right guard on that play right there is a guy, number 67, Richie Leonard IV. He is their backup right guard, and he gets thrown out by number 92, who makes that tackle. Florida's starting right guard is Osiris Torrance, and he is a 91.2 PFF grade run blocker, preseason second-team All-American. He's a phenomenal player. He's very, very good. He did not play. Yeah.
0 penalties, 2 pressures allowed all season.
Yeah. Phenomenal player. If he is still out or limited, bad news for Florida. ETN here, Trevor Etienne. I personally think he's Florida's best running back. He's averaged 6.3 yards a carry this year, but LSU did hold him to 3.5 yards a carry on just 8 carries. He's not getting the lion's share of the carries right now. A lot of Florida fans, I think, feel like he's their best back as well, but they kind of have an interesting rotation going at running back. So you're going to see, do we have 28? Did you already play it? Sorry.
I don't know. No, I'm sorry. Some of these, I did this at work, so some of this might have gotten.
Good.
Yeah.
I was just say, the 28 is just a zone scheme play, and I just wanted to point out, Florida's a heavy zone scheme team, much like Missouri was. Georgia's been excellent defending those zone scheme runs over the last 2 weeks against Auburn and Vandy, but they're going to see a lot again on Saturday. Florida runs zone about 3-1 over gap scheme. So this is Montreal Johnson Jr., the running back here. He's the guy that's getting the most carries for Florida right now. Sunbelt transfer, came with Napier. Against LSU, he had 13 carries for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. A lot of those yardages were on this play right here, about 40 of them. He's a good back. He's not a great back. I think this Florida team has a pretty good offensive line that can get out on the edges and move people in the run game. They are, they're leading the nation in rushing explosiveness, if I'm not mistaken. Like you'll pin them down 2-3 yards a pop, and then all of a sudden the theme so far for them has been they'll bust a run like that on you at some point, pretty much every game. So
yeah, I think they're right behind Alabama in yards per carry, in all of FBS at like 6.4 or something.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so this seems mundane right here, this play, but the reason I pointed out is just it's a key point to me, and that's that Florida's wide receivers are not special. Even when Richardson has time to throw and good protection like he does here, He often doesn't have anywhere to go with the ball because those guys can't get separation even if they have 4, 5, 6 seconds. So something to watch on Saturday, and all the more reason why to keep an eye on AR trying to, scramble in the passing game. So this offensive line, like we were just talking about, they've created some big explosive runs this year, but on a down-to-down basis, they're just as much like they're really much more likely to just let things get stopped for a loss or a minimal game. Like they'll run and it'll be 2, 2, 3, 40. So kind of pointing that out again. This is another play where you see 3rd and 7, nowhere to throw the ball, so Richardson has to check it down. Lots of checkdowns in this offense. Again, something to keep an eye on. This one is a good example of what happens if you leave the middle of the field open just for a sliver against Richardson. Like if you are not spying him up the middle, he can really, really hurt you. LSU's got a good pass rush here, but that lane opens and there's not a linebacker there to fill it quite fast enough, and he turns it into a 1st and goal like that on 2nd and 10. So yeah, and then here you're going to see he still struggles with accuracy, particularly in kind of the shorter throws. I mean that should be a touchdown. Goes into the dirt behind the receiver. Like it's not a hard throw. That's a throw that college quarterbacks got to make. So he's just very much a boomer bust kind of player. And he'll have some incredible throws and then he'll do stuff like that. Play action, like we were talking about earlier, plus Richardson's athleticism often equals open wide receivers when he rolls out. Now, he can't always hit them. He doesn't hit them at a high enough frequency for this Florida offense to be consistent, I think, as they want to be. But, like he can do things. So, yeah, on this clip right here, this offensive line has been pretty good this year. If you back that up, like the center 65, Kingsley Akwakan, he's been the most consistent pass protector. Torrance has been stellar as well, but you see here Torrance is out of the game. The right guard, he's not in, and LSU is able to get a nice pressure, kind of overloading that right side. The tackles are not as good. The right tackle, number 70, Barber, has given up 8 pressures. The left tackle, Richard Garage, he's given up 9. So I expect if you see Georgia get pass rush in this game, it's probably going to come off the edges. And, maybe I'm wrong because Georgia's defensive tackles are very good, but that seems to be the pressure point more often than not. Right here, you're going to see this is what gets people excited about Richardson, right? Like he doesn't make this throw all the time, but when he does, it's pretty special. Ricky Pearsall is the guy that catches that. He's Florida's best kind of, possession receiver, in my opinion. He's speedy enough to get separation over the middle, unlike Shorter. 16 catches on 24 targets for 303 yards this year. He's kind of the guy that works the middle, and Shorter, the guy we pointed out on the very first play, he's the guy that's going to work the boundaries and the deep balls. And then this is
jump over to, I think I'm missing 108 and 114. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So 108, if you guys saw the 80-yard touchdown run that Richardson had against LSU, that's what it was. Just kind of the point I want to make is you got to tackle the dude. You can't let him get a full head of steam moving up the center of the field. If you do, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So last thing here, this is the last play for the offense, but it's going to go to Xavier Henderson, number 3. They do a lot of these kind of jet sweep motions pre-snap, and here in the fourth quarter of this game, when they needed a drive, they sort of kind of cashed those motion fakes that they'd been running all game in by finally throwing to him. And you can see LSU was kind of ignoring him because they've done this all game and haven't put the ball in his hands. But he can be dangerous in space. He's a jet sweep kind of guy. He had 4 catches on 5 targets for 42 yards in this game against LSU, 25 catches on 35 targets for 248 yards this year. So kind of more of a short throw type of receiver. Average depth of target's only 7-8 yards. That's it. That's all I got.
Well, we'll take a little break here from the play before we jump in the defense here. What I think is killing them is not killing them. What's holding them back is sort of that inefficiency that you talked about. This is a 41% pass success rate team, and that's where we were with the Georgia offense in 2019, where you could see glimpses of it, but just not consistent ones. And it seems like the ones that you miss are the ones you really got to hit, and that puts them at even though with their good rush game, of 6 yards a carry, if you get a successful run on first down for 6 yards and you're 2nd and 4 and you try to throw a pass and turns in, instead of converting or whatever, you're in 3rd and 4, and that's just not where you want to be as an offense to be, keep drives alive. And I definitely feel like if he gets better, more accurate passing, or if he gets hot, it could be trouble. I don't think I'm not trying to put us on an upset alert, but you got to wrap him up. You can't let him get comfortable in the pocket. You can't let him get those plays, Graham, that you pointed out, where he can just gash you up the middle and maybe make a huge highlight top 10 play for SportsCenter top 10 play. So I think we're in be a good shape, but he's their best athlete for sure, right? Is there anybody offensively?
Oh yeah, no, I mean he's incredible. I mean he's a like athletically he's just very, very special. The arm is just not accurate consistently enough to really let them do, if he was, able to hit on 65% completion, 70% completion, like that offense would be really scary. But you never know when the day is going to happen where it clicks for him. One thing I've noticed about him this year is that like he's very susceptible to kind of the end game like ebbs and flows of the game. Like he mentioned after the Kentucky game when he threw a pick six, like that he said he flashed back to the Georgia game from last year. And like, I think that Georgia's defense, if they can kind of just keep them from having success early, or especially if they get an early turnover or a sack, like I think he can be rattled pretty easily just because he's a young quarterback and he's, kind of that having to do what he did under Mullen at the end of the season last year, I think really messed with his confidence. And I think he's getting better, but if you look at Florida on offense, the thing that really stands out for me is just like against Utah, Tennessee, LSU, like as far as their, Power 5 opponents, they've been pretty good, man. I mean, like they're putting up a high points, solid yards per play. But I mean, against Missouri, Richardson had 67 yards passing. Against Kentucky, I forget exactly what the stat lines were, but like they got held in check very much so. And I think that is the question that I've asked myself all week is, do I think Georgia's defense is more like Utah, Tennessee, LSU, or do I think that they're more like Missouri and Kentucky? My answer would be that they're more like Missouri and Kentucky. So I think there's a spot where this breaks and, they could really possibly shut Florida down. I mean, he had, Florida had 279 yards against Kentucky, and he had 143 passing in that game, 14 of 35 for 2 interceptions, 143 yards, not very good. Against Mizzou, they got the win that day, but that was mostly because of a pick six, 66 yards passing that game. They did have 231 rush yards, but point being, like, there's this weird tipping point between good defenses and bad defenses where he looks, not just him, but like their offense, especially their passing game, looks extremely inept. And then like they have these games against these kind of, lesser quality defenses where they look super explosive and they're making big plays all over the field.
Yeah, just they've only got 5 guys that have at least 10 targets. You talked about Pearsall and Shorter. Shorter is the 5-star that I think he may have been out of Florida, but he was at Penn State, transferred in a couple of years ago. He's the guy that you want to get those all verts, those deep shots to, and his reception is 50% reception, and he's getting 17 yards a catch. It's just not enough of them. I feel like the majority of those pass plays that they're calling for Richardson are these rollout play action boots, floods where they just put some guys in space and try to leave one of them open. They're not down one-on-one. He's not going to pick the guy. Certainly he'll definitely try to find the guy one-on-one and throw it over him, but I just don't think that's where his strengths are going to be. They're going to try to move the pocket on him. I like our chances with our linebackers are getting better every game. Certainly our secondary led by Chris Smith, on the watch list for the Thorpe Award, is going to possibly have a good day. And I think it could be, if they don't get the running game going or if they just try to pass it on Georgia, I like our chances that we can make some plays on defense.
Yeah, if Georgia's holding them to, like 2-yard gains on the ground on first and second down kind of thing, it's going to be a really long day for Florida.
Yeah, or if they can, even if it's a, bend don't break situation, where they do give up some yards and they get that 5 or 6 yard per carry, just getting them in the red zone and not letting them get behind you or break something off really big, and where that field gets easier to defend and harder to find holes in. I think that's where Georgia can really can make some plays on defense, even if I expect they will move the ball, but it's going to be what you can do in the red zone.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, you want to talk about the defense, or you got any more closing off? All right, let's do some D. See how many of these plays I actually have. I got them.
Nice. All right. It's always a game.
Yeah.
So Florida's leading pass rusher is our old friend, Mr. Brenton Cox Jr. He has 19 pressures and 2 sacks on the season. There, he gets the quarterback, doesn't quite wrap up. You will see that a good bit with him. But he is a speed rusher. Broderick Jones and Warren McClendon have been good with those, so I think you can feel good about that if you're Georgia. That guy that just made the tackle right here is Ventrell Miller, number 51, middle linebacker. He is Florida's best second-level defender by a heavy margin. Sorry if you'll back that up real quick, Josh. Highest graded run defender on the team. Grades out as an 88.1 in run defense. Next closest guy is 78.9. 23 of his 34 tackles in the run game have been stop plays, which is a failure for the offense basically. So Georgia's interior offensive line needs to watch out for him. I think they've played much better here over the last couple of weeks, but if you are not assignment sound and you're not, if you're making some of the mistakes they made earlier this year, he's going to create a lot of trouble in the run game. All right. So plays like this have been more common for the Florida defense than the play we saw where Cox is jumping the snap. Just the secondary has struggled mightily when the quarterback has time, and the quarterback has had time a lot. Number 0 there, Trey Dean, is the guy that gives this catch up. You see him sneaking up, and then, where's my guy? Oh, he's right there catching the ball. He has been putrid in coverage. He lets Kayshon Boutte get free there and misses the tackle after the catch. LSU targeted him 4 times for 3 catches, 67 yards. Very undisciplined with his eyes. So as you see here on clip 9, if we can back up real quick, Florida has the capacity to be good against the run. Their first string defensive line is good. Number 9 is Gervin Dexter, very heralded player, highly recruited interior lineman. The problem is that they don't have any depth on their front 4 after this first line of guys, and so these dudes wear out quick on during games. So don't be surprised if they're creating a little havoc in the first quarter, and then before halftime, Georgia starts popping plays. So here's Cox again, just kind of pointing out again. Speed rush tackles.
Oh, I thought you were saying he's pointing himself out.
No. I didn't mean to, but yeah, there's
that too.
There's that too. So this team is not good in short yardage. Florida as a defense. 4th and 1, 3rd and 2. Georgia should be able to move them around. Teams have had a lot of success throwing to the halfbacks against Florida. Josh, you're going to like this nugget right here, okay? So LSU hit John Emery for 3 catches and 24 yards with 1 touchdown on 4 targets. And then going back to the Tennessee game, they hit their running back, Jamari Small, for 3 catches on 3 targets for 32 yards and a touchdown.
Do we have a running back? Do we have a running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield, Graham?
I think we have one that actually like maybe catches it more than he runs it. I could be wrong though. But yeah, Ventrell Miller, 11 catches allowed on 13 targets for 132 yards and a touchdown this year, 89 yards after the catch allowed. I would expect Todd Monken to notice that and to throw to Mr. Kenny McIntosh, that running back that you were referring to a moment ago.
We all know Monken's watching the show right now. So if he didn't have it before, he's got
nothing else to do at 12:10 a.m. All right, so you can get on the edge against this Florida defense. You've seen Georgia run this kind of toss sweep concept a lot this year. The edges aren't great against the run, particularly Cox. Back up to 30. Yeah, so I mean, just what I was going to say on 36 is, and we'll show a little more of this later, but Utah, they ran for 7.1 yards a carry on 15 carries off the left and right edges, and they did that mostly with their tight ends. So look for Georgia to load up on the edges behind Washington and Bowers in this game and try to, kind of do some pin and pull type stuff and down block onto Cox and these guys, because I think it'll be a long day for them. All right. I'm caught up with you. Sorry. Okay. So number 16 is in the slot right here, covering the slot receiver right on top of the Gator head. His name is Trevez Johnson. He leads Florida in receptions allowed this year. 16 receptions allowed on 20 targets for 140 yards. I don't know, man. I don't know, but he looks lost. I'm not sure what technique that is there. The turn and burn technique is not one they usually teach. But
it looked like he was like the 12th man trying to get off the field before the ball was snapped, dude.
Yeah. I mean, like Jaden Daniels has not been – I mean, okay, he was good against Ole Miss last week. He was good in this game. But, like, Auburn held him to, like, 60-something or 70-something yards passing, if I recall correctly. In this game, he was 4 of 7 on 20-plus yard throws for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. So – the point I'm trying to illustrate here is that Florida secondary can be had like on some longer throws. And we're going to show you them being had on some longer throws a lot over the next few minutes. So number 23, Jaden Hill, is that guy with the dreads right there getting burnt on the slant, 3rd and 8. Not burnt, but he gets beat. He is better coverage grade than Johnson, but he's not much better. He's just 13 catches allowed on 18 targets for 188 yards. There's a lot of guys to pick on across this Florida defense. So here you go. I was talking earlier about Miller getting targeted by LSU in Florida or in Tennessee. Here, LSU hits him with the tight end. I know a team that has some tight ends. LSU targeted Miller 5 times in this game, and he gave up 5 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown. Just, again, Todd Monken somewhere salivating heavily. We're good. For some reason, it was 56, 57,
oh,
59.
Yeah.
I think there was one that was out of order. Yeah. It's all good, though.
Okay. It might have to go to – it might be at I hope this is not what I think I'm afraid is going to happen. I think I'm just 61. Okay. Sorry.
Perfect. You're good.
Okay.
So the Tigers were able to run for some big chunks in the hole between center and right guard, particularly as this Florida defensive line started to wear down, which by my kind of estimation happened around this point, midpoint of the second quarter. So that's Dexter, number 9 there. And this dude had a bad night against LSU in terms of missing tackles in the run game. But the big key here to take away, in the hole between center and right guard, LSU had 6 carries for 71 yards. So you can run up the middle on these guys. And 59 of those yards came after contact. So this is not a very solid tackling defense in the run game or in the pass game for that matter as well. So this is our old friend Jalen Kimber, Georgia transfer. He's only played 61 coverage snaps this year. He's been targeted once every 5.5 snaps. That's pretty frequent. Only played 8 snaps against LSU, but gives up the touchdown there on the year. 7 catches allowed on 11 targets for 135 yards and 2 touchdowns. Don't know if we'll see much of him in this game, honestly. But if you do, I would say it's probably a good idea to throw at him.
Yeah, that's all right. Hope I got 72. Yep, 72. Look at that.
Yeah, so Florida's going to jump off sides there, and you get a free play. And Daniels, he picks on 23 Hill again. This is just a really nice throw and catch. But again, like, receivers are getting behind these boundary corners a lot, is the point I'm trying to illustrate here. Yes, Georgia is without A.D. Mitchell, but there are big plays to be had on the boundaries in this game against these cornerbacks. This might be the day with Arian Smith kind of finally has that explosive play, or if Georgia decides that they want to just be really mean, they could line up Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington on the boundary and just baptize these dudes all day with like 50-50 balls that are really 80-20 balls.
Hang on a second. Let me see if 63 is the actual 63 that you want. Oh, that's okay. That's not it. We're gonna skip to 80. We're gonna skip to 85.
All good. It's just another Gervin Dexter missed tackle on a run. So again, I think Georgia has a chance to get him some. This is a Florida play. I must have mislabeled that. All good.
We'll do 94.
Yep. So Daniels in this game was 5 for 6 for 89 yards on throws between 10 and 19 yards. Just for the record, he was 1 for 4 for 17 yards on those types of throws against Auburn. So, working those types of throws, kind of short, intermediate throws, a lot of yards to be had there. This is not one of our plays.
I think I'm having like a hardware issue. Give me a second here, because that's my screen is all messed up.
No worries. You're good.
So,
we're almost through the plays. So
yeah, I'm just gonna the old reboot.
Well, while you're doing that, I guess anything that stood out to you about the Florida defense or anything.
Yeah, it like you said. I think that if we can go after the secondary, if we can, number one is going to be all about having a good game. And, he's been on social media all off season and he had this game circled. So if we, it's kind of like a game of momentum when you're down or when you're that big an underdog, everything is magnified good, but also can be magnified bad. So if we can control the edge rush, give, and avoid mistakes on offense, not, and, just play smart football to start and let the emotions settle down and maybe they come down a little bit and it's just, you just can't make big mistakes and give that team momentum that really, really wants to win this game and they're big time underdogs, which I'm sure that Napier's got them thinking about. So I don't think you have to do anything special, but just, attack those secondaries. Don't be conservative, I would say. If that's where you can attack them, then go attack it, and don't give any hope would be what I would want to see our offense do. I think we can do that. I expect that our running game is going to have some big. I think the running backs are going to have a big day. I think they're going to run it at them, around them, between them, and I would love to see us just grind this game out down their throats, and especially in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Like normally when we do a show and I make these notes, like I like to give the viewers a couple guys where I'm like, watch out for this guy because Georgia can pick on this guy. This seems like a a real weak point or whatever, right? Like on this defense, it's just, it's like spin the roulette wheel and choose whichever guy you want to go after and go after him. I'm sure that Georgia will have a more like detailed and succinct game plan than that, but the reality is like this defense is it's just not good. It's not good across the board, and they give up explosive plays. They don't tackle very well. They've had a bye week though, right? And it's just like I expect them to come out focused and intense, and that's where I agree with you heavily. Like Georgia needs to come out in this game because like Georgia should be able to score on almost every drive in this game if they execute the way that we've seen them execute for most of the season. And they need to come out and just basically not do what they did last year, right? So
I do have the Utah plays where you and you did a good job going way back to the first game of the season. This is a game they won, but you pointed out some things on the tight ends that maybe Georgia can replicate.
Yeah, I mean, so you see there 86, the Utah tight end, like creating a seal. Like Utah runs a ton of 12 personnel and 13 personnel, 2 and 3 tight end sets. We've seen Georgia doing that more and more over the last few weeks. They did it a lot last year. And, Utah by far is the team that's run for the most yards on Florida this year. They ran for 270 on the Gators on the ground. And a lot of that was those tight ends just pounding away on them. Like you're seeing, it's not big, like giant gaping holes. Florida's defensive line actually played pretty good in this game, but just tough running, lots of runs on the edges or kind of bouncing outside. And I think these are some concepts that, that Georgia already does, on a week-to-week basis and that are already in their offense. And so
our two highest run blockers are Bowers and Washington.
Right.
According to, so
yeah,
good pull on the Utah tight ends. I mean, that's certainly where they got a bunch of yards. And like I said, I mean, maybe that's how we attack them. If we see a bunch of 12 personnel, it's not exactly the 12 personnel that we had envisioned all offseason, but I don't care. Just, Monken said it. He gets paid to put points on the board.
That's right. And they have put points on the board. There's been a little bit of an element, particularly against Vanderbilt and even at times against Auburn and early against Mizzou. Like there's kind of been this vibe at times where like Georgia's, it's not like they're out there like running bad plays by any means, but like they've been very vanilla, I mean, no one's really like forced them to throw down the field. So you haven't seen too many deep shots taken. There's things that like, it feels like, they could do that they haven't really chosen to do yet. And I think that this is kind of the part of the schedule where they're going to start doing those things. Like this Florida team is one that Georgia should beat, but like Kirby Smart's not going to take this team lightly. He's not going to come in here assuming they're going to win this game. Like I think Georgia is going to come out, and I expect this offense coming off a week off, Ladd healthy, Stetson's shoulder rested. Like I think that they're going to come out and maybe show us some things that we haven't seen them do in terms of, more vertical passing type concepts and just a few wrinkles maybe, or some more 12 personnel and just different things with their pass catching rotations that, maybe more Dom Blaylock, right? Like Dom has been a guy who, he played 4 snaps against Vanderbilt and had 2 catches for 36 yards and a touchdown. And I think it's like with his history and kind of how long it's taken him to get back to himself, I don't think they want to overwork him, but it's like they come him out and throw it to him a few times a game and like prove to themselves that they can do it when it matters. And then he goes on the shelf. Right. And it's like, at some point I expect them to have the realization that we're all having of like, this dude's a stud. We need to get him the ball. We need to target him 5 to 7 times a game instead of 1 to 3. So I think this is kind of I hope this is sort of the start of that for Georgia. It would be logical for that to be the case because we all know what's coming to town next week. It's going to be probably their biggest offensive test of the regular season, or the biggest test for the defense of the regular season, I should say, in Tennessee. And like I think that Georgia, not just because Tennessee's coming up, but like it's November in the SEC, and this is when the shit starts to fly, and it's time to really show what you can do. And there's not any. I mean, Georgia Tech's at the end of the season, but like between now and Georgia Tech, there's no Vanderbilts on the schedule. I mean, like there's teams that Georgia should beat, but those teams are going to be more competitive than a lot of the ones that they faced throughout the first 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's like college football is builds to something. You're constantly you're finding your personnel, you're always in any football game, you're going to be replacing guys that are injured. And so I know there's going to be some turnover on defense. You broke the news today that Dan Jackson's out. So where there's going to be an opportunity for some more secondary. And again, it's like, Kirby's recruited this position and this position group extremely well. So those guys are ready to play, I'd expect. And I there's always somebody that's going to show up and say, oh yeah, we've heard about this guy. Now we finally get to see him. So, and I don't know if Ingram Dawkins, do we think we're going to see him a little more on Saturday or yeah?
I do. Yeah, I do for sure. I mean, we saw him on the first series against Vanderbilt, which is kind of a sign that he's out of the doghouse, right? But like that dude's an elite talent, man. He's a 5-star interior lineman, which there's not very many of. I mean, showed up in Athens, 290, 300 pounds. I think he's dropped some weight, but like he was speed rushing Broderick Jones on G-Day at 300 pounds. Like, and especially with Jalen Carter still out, we expect him to be out for this game. We've reported that on DawgsCentral. Like Ingram Dawkins, Brinson, Bear Alexander. I expect those guys to they're going to need them to make some plays in the middle because we just talked about Richardson and, you don't want to let those lanes open up in the middle. Like, I mean, not that I think those D tackles are going to run him down in the open field, but like being there and not allowing him to have a straight line and forcing things to the outside like that, that's the priority, right? Like you're like Mondon is a guy who I expect to play on Saturday, and he is a equivalent athletic freak to Anthony Richardson. Like let them go get in a race to the sideline. You'll be fine with that every time, right? Just don't leave those big lanes in the center of the field.
Yeah, just quickly looking, that Georgia's the 5 guys for the Florida offensive line have like 13 penalties, which I'm guessing are a lot of motions and holds and stuff like that, and Georgia's half that. So just by comparison, that it's a team that that I think that front 3 guys can put some pressure on them. I think it could be a tough day, but we can't. We got to wrap up Richardson, like you said. I mean, he's everything is going to be riding on how he plays, and I hope they're up for the task and excited for it and can get after him because this game's always big. It means a lot. It means a lot to me. I grew up in the 90s, man. I was like, this game scares me no matter what.
Dude, so did I. I mean, like the first many Georgia-Florida games I went to were losses. I mean, like I was born in 1989, man. I was kind of like my early Georgia football memories are in the era of losing 13 out of 14 to those guys. So, yeah, I mean, that shit was miserable, man. Everybody was miserable with that. Yeah, and I mean, in a weird way, like Steve Spurrier and what 96, 95 when they come to Athens, putting up 52, running a reverse pass to get to 52 late in the fourth quarter. Kirby Smart was on the field in that moment. Like, it's kind of like the superhero origin story for Kirby Smart in this rivalry, right? Like, like the story on Spurrier was always like Georgia beat him his senior year to deny him that SEC championship, and he he hated him for it for the rest of his life. And like, the story for
Kirby is he hates
he's stuck on the field. Yeah, Ragoff's getting, like Spurrier's throwing the dirt on top of Ragoff's grave between the hedges in Athens, being the first team to ever put 50 up in Sanford Stadium. And he's a young freshman, from South Georgia who grew up, right on the border of this rivalry it's on the field for one of the first times in his Georgia career. And that happens. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I can promise you he wants to win this game by 70.
Yeah, it's like exactly. You always wanted the coach that hated Florida as much, if not more, than you did, and that's all I've wanted. I mean, he hates everybody.
Yeah, this was where FTMF came from, man.
Exactly. That's my coach. That's my coach. Well, Graham's always appreciate you pulling out all those plays. We could show you a lot more if we had more time, but I think you got a lot of key players and stuff. So I think everyone that watched the show, you're gonna be ready for what's coming at us on Saturday. You were about to say something else. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna ask for your score prediction.
Oh, all right. Here. Okay, you and John are gonna be back with score predictions and picks later.
I'll give mine now. Yeah, I mean,
go ahead and give yours because I've been thinking about it, but I don't know if I've nailed it down. But
so I mean, my struggle is like the big question for me is not whether or not Georgia can score. I mean, Georgia can score a lot of points in this game. The big question for me is like, I don't think Florida can drive the ball down the field on this Georgia defense. With Richard, I don't think Richardson's accurate enough for them to say we're gonna, get 5-7 yards down all the way down the field. But I mean, they've been great at creating explosives, and that's my big question: is like, can they pop an explosive in this game, or did Georgia kind of like I've been under the opinion that Missouri game, Georgia's defensive line and linebackers missed a couple run fits, and it kind of exposed something. And then Georgia's coaching staff, being a good coaching staff, they sort of covered it up since. And so I'm very curious to see what happens. I lean towards, not that Florida's going to go up and down the field on Georgia. I think that they can score like into the teens on Saturday. I mean, I feel like that's probably doable and possible. So I don't know how much mercy Georgia decides to take. And with as bad as that Florida defensive line depth is, I think if this game does get out of hand, like Georgia running the ball, to run the clock out is not going to be the same as it is against a lot of teams, because Georgia's second string offensive line is going to be light years better than Florida's second string defensive line. So I think they get close to 50. I think Georgia gets into the neighborhood on Saturday. I'm going to say spread's 24. Yeah.
That's where it's already up to 24. Good gracious.
That's where it opened.
Yeah, right? That's what I've heard today a couple of times. I haven't actually looked it up, but yeah.
I'm going to say Georgia. Let's go 52-20.
Ooh, 52-20. That's a lot of points.
Lot of points. I mean, I was thinking like 48-17, 52-20, somewhere in there. I'm going to bump them over 50 just because we were just talking about how Spurrier hung 50. So maybe Kirby's like, if he's got a chance to hang 50 on Florida, I mean, he's had the chance to do it before. So I don't know.
I think if the game's out of hand, I think we shut it down and go conservative and not show anything more for Tennessee.
I agree. I just don't think Florida can stop the vanilla stuff.
Yeah. I'm just looking. I'll post this on the website. It's tomorrow, hopefully. But
that's DawgsCentral.com, the website he's referring to.
So offensively, Georgia and Florida are actually pretty close, 7.2 and 7.3 yards per play. They're allowing 6 yards a play, 28 points a game. That's not good. Georgia's allowing
their defense is hard.
Yeah. Even as good as that rushing attack is, they're rushing at 54% of the time, which tells me that's if they do drive, it's gonna They do need explosives. They're not going to just run it down your throats. And that even then, it's a 43% success rate on offense, on rushing offense for them. And we're allowing 32% success rate on rush plays.
Yeah.
So, I'm thinking 41. I'm going to be right on the number because I had 41-17, but I'll lay the points and go 41-16.
There you go. All right. Dog Stats lays the points in Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's
always a good sign.
The surefire backdoor cover. I'm terrible.
Anthony Richardson's going to come slamming through your back door at 6:45 Eastern Saturday night.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to run Wildcat with somebody or something and just, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the game. Like I said at the start of the show, if you're still with us, please, seriously, come by. I mean, we're just going to be cooking some typical tailgate food. It's a little chill this year. We've got Ian Boatman, who's a longtime fan of our work, is going to pop over there. I believe it's his first cocktail party. So,
wow, really?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. I'm almost positive it might be his first cocktail party, but maybe I'm mistaken. But he's going to be there, and I hope anybody that's around on that side of the stadium, 1111 Albert Street, come on by. I'd like to say hello and get ready for the game. So, Graham, like I said, you and John are going to be back later in the week with some picks, and I'm going to be posting some more stuff on DawgsCentral.com. And
bam.
And jump in the comments, like, share, review, all that sort of stuff. And till then, go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Enjoyed it, Josh. Thanks for pulling all the clips together. And
most of them, at least.
Hey, most is better than none.